What is up everybody, it's Animac here for Anime Uproar, and in this video we will be talking about all 7 members of the 7 deadly sins, including their background and origins, their powers and abilities, and more. Here on the channel we made multiple news videos about the 7 Deadly Sins Season 2 back in 2017, and all of those videos received a ton of support and many of you requested more 7 Deadly Sins content on this channel. I know that Nanatsu Fired Up in particular requested it a bunch of times along with many others, and for that reason we decided to make this video explaining everything you need to know about all 7 members of the 7 Deadly Sins in one place. This video will contain spoilers about the backstory and the unique abilities of the 7 Deadly Sins, so proceed with caution. Although I will do my best to avoid spoilers about what happens later on in the story for those of you who are not caught up with the manga. However, if you are one of those people who doesn't want any type of spoiler ever, you have been warned. I want to give a big shout out to Briggs from All Day Anime. He has been making quality 7 Deadly Sins content for quite a while, and he will also be uploading weekly episode reviews for 7 Deadly Sins Season 2 on his channel. Feel free to check him out, link in the description. If you want to see more 7 Deadly Sins content on this channel, leave a like to let me know, and if you are new, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell. By the way, we are now posting daily on both Twitter and Instagram, so feel free to follow us there at Anime Uproar. The first sin that we meet in the very first episode of the anime and the first chapter of the manga is the dragon Sin of Wrath Meliodas or Meliodas, depending on whether you watch the dub or the sub. Although he is the notorious captain of the 7 Deadly Sins, we first meet Meliodas as the fun-loving and carefree owner of the Boar Tavern. Because he is very small compared to the other adult characters, and also because he looks nothing like his wanted posters, at first many people assume that Meliodas is just some kid, and they often grossly underestimate his true power. It can seem a bit paradoxical that Meliodas is the Sin of Wrath, since he seems to be an incredibly easygoing person who likes to joke around and have fun. And he is also known to be merciful and to avoid killing anyone whenever possible. However, when someone he cares about is in danger and he is driven over the edge, we see a black mark appear on his forehead and Meliodas seems to lose control over himself. This is when his wrath truly comes out, and he quickly and brutally destroys his opponents without a second thought and without any expression on his face. At the end of Season 1 and in the OVA, we learn that the type of black markings that appear on Meliodas' forehead are connected to the Demon Clan. And eventually we learn that Meliodas himself is a member of the Demon Clan. Not only is he not a kid, he is over 3,000 years old, and he is the oldest son of the Demon King, the ruler of the Demon Clan. In fact, the reason that Meliodas has such a calm and carefree personality is because he needs to be this way in order to keep his emotions under control. If he loses control of his immense demonic power, terrible things will happen and innocent people will get hurt. This has happened in the past, and as a result, Merlin, another member of the 7 Deadly Sins, had to use her magic to seal away the majority of Meliodas' power. And she did this in order to stop him from losing control again. Although he uses multiple weapons throughout the series, the first weapon that we see Meliodas use is Dragon Handle, a broken sword which enables him to effectively use Full Counter. Full Counter is the ability to literally counter a magical attack and reflect it back at his opponent with even greater power than the original attack. And the more effective the opponent's magic, the more effective Full Counter is. However, Full Counter does have its limitations. For example, while it is effective against magical attacks, it cannot counter physical attacks. We later learn that Meliodas' Dragon Handle is one of the keys required to open the Coffin of Eternal Darkness, which was used to seal away the Demon Clan in the previous Holy War. Meliodas also possesses an ability known as Hellblaze that allows him to create and manipulate mysterious black flames. This power is directly related to the demon clan, and it is strong enough to hurt even immortal creatures and stop them from regenerating. When he loses control and the demonic power takes over, Meliodas becomes even more powerful than he is normally, but the drawback is that he cannot contain the power and there can be terrible collateral damage. The name of Meliodas' sacred treasure is the demon sword Lostvein, which is an ornate curved sword that was given to him by King Bartra. Lostvein enables Meliodas to create clones of himself. He can create up to 4 clones, but the clones will be significantly weaker than the original. When the 7 deadly sins went into hiding after being framed for killing Zaratras, Meliodas sold his sacred treasure in order to finance the Boar Tavern, but the treasure was retrieved by Merlin. Meliodas' favorite pastime in life seems to be getting very up close and very personal with Elizabeth. The second member of the 7 deadly sins that we meet is Dianne or Dianne, the Serpent sin of envy. She is a member of the Giant clan, which is why she is so much bigger than all the other characters, and why she often inspires fear in people even though she is actually a friendly and kind person. Throughout her life, her immense size often made her an outcast because regular-sized people saw her as a threat. And this made her feel very lonely, to the point that she sometimes even wishes that she was small like everyone else. As a child, she actually left the Giant clan to live on her own because the Giant clan is known for their love of fighting and Dianne didn't want to fight. And this again emphasizes her kind and gentle nature. Dianne has strong feelings towards Meliodas because he recruited her into the 7 deadly sins and treated her with kindness despite her massive size. And the reason that her sin is envy likely stems from the fact that she envies those who are of a normal size and don't have to be outcasts like her. Dianne is known for her incredible physical strength and stamina, and she is especially effective in defense. As a giant, she has a unique ability known as creation that enables her to manipulate the earth in order to create massive weapons and even moving creatures, such as the golems she created to keep her company as a child. Her sacred treasure is Gideon, a massive warhammer that enhances Dianne's physical ability and earth manipulating powers. Whoa, I just realized that Dianne is both an earthbender and the Warhammer Titan. Best crossover ever? The next member of the 7 deadly sins that we meet in episode 4 of the anime and chapter 7 of the manga is the Fox's Sin of Greed, Ban. During the Forest of White Dreams arc, Gilthunder tells Meliodas that Ban has been a prisoner for 5 years, and he was even tortured. But when he hears that the captain of the 7 deadly sins, Meliodas, is alive, Ban simply breaks out of prison without much trouble. We learned that Ban actually let himself be imprisoned on purpose 5 years earlier because he was depressed and torture makes him feel alive. And we also see that no matter how many times he is stabbed or injured, his body heals on its own. When we first meet Ban, he has a beard and long hair, and personally I thought he looked really cool with the beard. But during his battle with Jericho at the prison, he lets her essentially groom him with her sword until his hair is shorter and his face is shaved. By the way, let me know if you think Ban looks cooler with a beard or without a beard. Personally, I'm leaning towards the beard. Ban is an eccentric and fun-loving guy who loves to roughhouse with Meliodas, but he can also take things too far, as he did when he tried to take Meliodas' dragon handle. Meliodas refused to let Ban take the sword, and instead he slashed Ban across the face. This is the only wound that Ban has received which doesn't heal on its own, and he still has a scar on his face to prove it. We can assume that Meliodas is so protective of the sword because he knows that it can be used to open the coffin of eternal darkness and release the demon clan. Later on in the series, we learned that in his youth, Ban was a bandit, and his goal was to find the Fountain of Youth and to drink from it in order to become immortal. His past as a thief and his desire for the Fountain of Youth is probably the reason why he is the Fox's Sin of Greed. 20 years before the start of the series, he entered the Fairy King's forest and found the Fountain of Youth. But he was stopped from drinking from it by Elaine, a fairy who was in charge of protecting the fountain while her brother the Fairy King was away. Ban and Elaine spent some time together inside the forest and they fell in love, but their relationship was cut short by a red demon who attacked the forest and fatally injured both Ban and Elaine. In order to save Ban, Elaine made him drink water from the Fountain of Youth. While this saved Ban's life and made him immortal, Elaine died and this broke Ban's heart. Ban was later accused of being the one who destroyed the forest and killed Elaine in order to get to the Fountain of Youth, but no matter how many times the authorities tried to execute him, he simply couldn't die. As he languished in prison, devastated by the loss of Elaine, he was discovered by Meliodas and eventually recruited into the 7 Deadly Sins. While publicly Ban loves to drink, joke around and have fun, in private he is haunted by Elaine's death, and his ultimate passion and borderline obsession is to find a way to somehow revive her. Apart from being immortal, meaning he doesn't age and his body regenerates instantly from injuries, he is also very fast and strong. He has a special ability called Snatch, which enables him to steal objects from others without making direct contact, including the vital organs of his opponents if he chooses. Ban can also steal the power, stamina, and speed of his opponents, which makes his opponent progressively weaker as Ban becomes stronger. However, Ban is limited in terms of how much power he can steal from others before he cannot handle anymore. Ban's sacred treasure is known as Kurechus. Not sure about the pronunciation of these names because they come from Arthurian legend. Ban's sacred weapon is a staff divided into 4 parts and connected by chains, and it actually reminds me a little bit of nunchucks. I personally think that Ban is one of the coolest characters in the series, and I love how his personality is a mix of getting drunk and joking around on the one hand, and being desperately heartbroken and obsessed with reviving Elaine, his true love, on the other. After Ban, the next member of the 7 Deadly Sins that we meet is the Grizzly Sin of Sloth King, also known as Harlequin, the King of the Fairies. As suggested by his title, King is a fairy, and he is actually the brother of Elaine. He has a fairy form in which he looks like a young boy despite being over 1,000 years old. And he also has a human form in which he becomes a big chubby dude with like a sideburns beard type thing going on. When we first meet King, he is working with the Holy Knights and he wants to kill Ban because he believes the false accusations that Ban destroyed the Fairy King's forest and killed Elaine. King was once the protector of the forest and he lived there together with Elaine and other fairies. But after his best friend Helbram left the forest to see the human world, King went after him and left the duty of protecting the forest to Elaine. Helbram and the other fairies that went with him were tricked by humans and killed for their wings because the wings were worth a lot of money in the human world. And when King found out what happened, he was attacked by a human called Aldrich and nearly killed before he was rescued by a young Dianne. However, as a result of the attack, King lost his memories and so he never returned to the Fairy King's forest to continue his duty of protecting it. King's relationship with Dianne developed and he eventually regained his memories, but he ultimately decided to erase Dianne's memories of himself so she doesn't remember the time they spent together. King was eventually arrested for abandoning his duties as the Fairy King and for failing to stop his best friend Helbram from murdering innocent humans for revenge, and since he was imprisoned, King couldn't return to the forest in time to save it and Elaine from the Red Demon. King's Sin of Sloth, meaning idleness or laziness, stems from the fact that he abandoned his duties as the Fairy King and protector of the forest. In general, King appears to be rational and intelligent. However, he has strong romantic feelings for Dianne even though he isn't able to express them to her. And this can lead him to behave in a rash and jealous manner. Because he is a fairy, King can fly and also transform his appearance. Although in terms of pure physical strength, he is quite weak, King is fast and has immense magical power. As the Fairy King, he has a special ability called Disaster, which allows him to control and modify organic matter, including nature. King's sacred treasure is the Spirit Spear Chastioful, which was made from the sacred tree from the fairy realm. The treasure can change its shape into everything from a pillow or a stuffed animal to a deadly spear. And King's ability Disaster, which has power over nature, allows him to bring out the full potential of his sacred treasure. King's primary interest in life is Dianne, and he hopes to one day marry her. He actually won the Nanatsu no Taizai popularity poll, making him one of the most popular characters according to Japanese manga readers. Next up is the goat sin of lust, Gowther, first revealed in episode 14 of the anime and chapter 53 of the manga. Because in his wanted posters, Gowther is shown only in his large armor, when we first meet a very large creature in armor being accompanied by a thin and calm young man who is really into books, it is natural to assume that Gowther, a member of the notorious 7 Deadly Sins, is the large armored creature. However, we soon learn that the armored creature is actually Dale, a human who was turned into a demon by drinking demon blood and who ultimately lost control over his own mind. The real Gowther is the thin young man, and he gave Dale his own enchanted armor in order to keep Dale's demonic powers in check, at least temporarily. Later on in the manga, we learn that Gowther is actually a doll who was artificially created by a demon, but I won't talk about that too much here. I plan to talk more about the demons in a separate video. The fact that Gowther is a doll makes it difficult for him to understand human emotions, which is why he often appears cold and monotone. He reads a lot of books in order to understand humans better, but it is hard for him to grasp human emotions just by reading books. However, we do know that Gowther has empathy and compassion because of the kindness he shows Dale and others, including animals in the forest and other people such as Gia or Julia, Elizabeth, and the other members of the 7 Deadly Sins. Gowther is the sin of lust because, believe it or not, in his past, he was accused of engaging in lustful acts with a princess. Nevertheless, the accusations were false and Gowther is not guilty of any inappropriate lewd stuff that we know of. Because he is a doll, Gowther's body is highly resistant to physical attacks and he can take the type of damage that would kill a normal person and still survive. Even if his head is detached from his body, he can simply reattach it. Gowther has a very interesting and incredibly powerful special ability known as Invasion, which enables him to read the minds of others and trap them inside their own traumatic memories. Gowther also has the ability to transform parts of his body, like the color and length of his hair. The name of his sacred treasure is Herit, and it allows him to summon 2 bows made of pure energy that he can fire at opponents. When used together with his ability Invasion, the bows allow Gowther to rewrite the memories of a large number of people at long range. Due to the fact that he is a doll, Gowther doesn't need to eat or drink. His glasses, by the way, are not just for show. Without them, he actually has very poor vision. Near the end of season 1 of the anime, we meet the 6th member of the 7 Deadly Sins, the Boar's Sin of Gluttony, Merlin. Known as the most powerful mage in all of Britannia, Merlin is actually over 3,000 years old, and her true name cannot be pronounced by humans, so she uses Merlin for the sake of practicality. Merlin was born in Belyaluin, a city once known as the capital of the wizards, and her birth was a momentous occasion because she was apparently born with infinite magic. The warring goddess and demon clans both tried to get Merlin to come over to their side during the previous Holy War, and they each offered secret magical knowledge in return for her support. Rather than picking either side, Merlin took the knowledge offered by both sides. Angry that they've been tricked, the rulers of the goddess and demon clans destroyed the entire city of Belyaluin, but Merlin managed to escape the destruction and became the only known survivor from the capital of the wizards. Her sin of gluttony is most likely related to this. Merlin had such a hunger for magical knowledge and the secrets of the goddess and demon clans that she couldn't choose between the two because she wanted it all. In fact, her greatest ambition seems to be to consume all the knowledge that there is to know in the world. As a result, an entire city was destroyed, and this is the sin that Merlin has to bear. Merlin has known Meliodas for a very long time, and she was instrumental in establishing the 7 deadly sins, because she was the one who helped Meliodas identify the other 5 recruits. She was also the one who gave Gowther his enchanted armor. As Britannia's greatest mage, Merlin has immense magical powers and possesses many magical abilities. One of her special abilities is Infinity, which enables her to make her spells last forever. She even used a spell to make her own body stop aging at age 30, making her virtually immortal. And in the world of the 7 deadly sins, her magical abilities are considered to be in an entirely different league from the powers of an ordinary mage. Merlin also has the ability known as Absolute Cancel, which allows her to cancel out and erase the spells of others. She can use her magic to locate a specific person or object in an area the size of an entire city. The name of her sacred treasure is the Morning Star of Aldan. The full magical properties of this treasure are still unknown, but we know that Merlin can use it to look in on what's happening in other places and to shoot off spells. As mentioned earlier, her primary drive in life is learning everything there is to know, and in that sense, she is a glutton for knowledge. And the final member of the 7 deadly sins that we meet is the lion sin of pride, Escanor. Although he isn't officially introduced in the anime until season 2, we do see a brief glimpse of him in the final episode of the Signs of a Holy War TV special. Escanor is a 40-year-old human, and he has a very unique power which first manifested in his youth. While at nighttime, he is by far the weakest of the 7 deadly sins. As the sun begins to rise each day, Escanor's power grows immensely every hour until it reaches its maximum height at noon. As his power grows, so does his body. He becomes incredibly tall and muscular until he reaches his peak at noon, at which point he towers over regular people both in terms of stature and power. At noon each day, Escanor's power is at its highest for 1 minute. And at this point, Merlin states that Escanor is easily the strongest of all the 7 deadly sins, as he becomes an invincible incarnation of power. Escanor's personality changes along with his power level. At night, he is weaker than even an average human, and he is quiet, bashful, and polite. During the day, as his power grows, he becomes increasingly arrogant, egotistical, and prideful, which explains why Escanor is the sin of pride. He enjoys poetry. As a child, he was ostracized and mistreated because of his unique powers that other people feared. And Escanor is in love with Merlin because she was the first person who did not consider him to be some sort of monster because of his strange power. The name of Escanor's sacred treasure is the Divine Axe Rita, a massive and excruciatingly heavy battle axe. In his daytime form, Escanor gives off an immense amount of heat, which can actually hurt those around him. But his sacred treasure allows him to gather and store all of that excess energy inside the axe and then release it later when he needs to. Due to the wild fluctuations of his power between day and night, it is virtually impossible to measure the true extent of Escanor's power. And that is it, all 7 members of the 7 deadly sins explained. I have to admit, I really enjoyed making this video and talking about these awesome characters. I actually saw season 1 of the anime twice, and then I read the manga, but all of this was a long time ago, so I really liked getting back into it and researching these characters again. Let me know down below who your favorite member of the 7 deadly sins is. For me right now, it's probably a tie between Meliodas and Ban. I just love both of those guys. If you'd like to see more 7 Deadly Sins content on this channel, be sure to leave a like to let me know. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We are now posting daily anime content on Twitter and Instagram, so feel free to follow us there at Anime Uproar. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.